Let's talk real quick about megachurch. Personally, I don't like that title because it sounds commercial. What was it like for you joining a megachurch?
I know. Well, first, when I was going to come, I was invited by my aunt and uncle, and they were already coming here, and they've been coming for years. So walking in, it was a little overwhelming at first, but it was, when they said megachurch, you look around going, oh my gosh, there's so many people. But I looked at it as like an opportunity, like, wow, there's so many more people here to meet with that have the faith that I do.
Hello and welcome to the Matt and Kendal Hagee podcast. Today, Kendal and I are having a discussion about a question that we are often asked and a label that we have to wear, and that is, what is a megachurch? But before we get into that topic, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining and being a part of it. I also want to encourage you to click like and subscribe, because that helps us spread the message of what we're talking about today and kind of giving biblical answers to real life questions and sharing just the authenticity of who we are and the faith that we have. So with that being said, I want you to click like and subscribe. I'm not telling you to, but
He's telling you, please.
yeah, okay. Just do it, right? But what we're going to talk about today is a question that you recently, Kendal,
Yes.
got in an email.
Yes.
And if you have a question that you want us to address on this podcast, email it to us, and that gives us the opportunity to not only consider it as a topic, but maybe address it in one of the conversations that we're going to have upcoming.
Yes, so we got an email. Hi, Pastor Matt and Kendal. I was talking to my cousin the other day and invited them to come to church with me. And they said, nah, I'm not into those mega churches. Like, just flat out. He shut it down. Didn't even ask what it was like or anything. And I get it. They had some weird experiences before, and they think church this size is going to feel cold or impersonal or just too big. But what they don't see is what happens once they're here. People remember your name. They pray with you. You're not just a number walking in. I just wish they'd come once and see it for themselves. How do you make such a big church feel so personal?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for asking the question, and I'm so proud and encourage you, keep inviting your cousin
Yes,
to
don't
church.
stop.
Often individuals will come up with an excuse about why they don't want to go, and sometimes it has nothing to do with the reality of it. I'm not into a mega church. I don't like this. I had a bad experience. I often look at it through other lenses, like, if I go to a really bad Mexican restaurant, it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop eating Mexican food. I'm going to have the courage to try again. So when somebody says, well, I don't want to go to a church because I had a bad experience at church, go to another church. There are lots of them out there. Believe me, there's a place for you. So
That's right.
Don't be discouraged by the excuse. Just keep asking and keep, remaining faithful to get them involved. But to be more direct about, the context of megachurch and how you make a big church feel personal, I think a lot of it has to do with the community that exists in that church. And here at Cornerstone, when Pastor Hagee started so many years ago, it was a family church. And the root word of family is familiarity. It's the people you know. And so when this church began to grow, it was by individuals who were experiencing the work that God was doing here and started to invite those that they were familiar with. Some of them were actually blood relatives. Some of them were just relational family, but it grew organically. And in many ways, even now, so many decades later, I can trace the lineage of members in this church based on when they came, who invited them, is that a family member to them, how they all met. Many of the families in this church from decades ago have children who married. And so you have, families, you have families that connected with families and so on and so forth. And I believe that that's part of what makes a big church feel small is as the question was asked, you are known.
Yes.
And you have opportunity to become a part of something that's large. Now, let's talk real quick about megachurch. Personally, I don't like that title because it sounds commercial. It's like mega store, Walmart, shopping center, Tanger Outlet Mall, whatever it is that you associate with it. And yet, it's actually defined as a group that meets in the church that's more than 2,000.
Okay, that's what
So Cornerstone qualifies as a mega church underneath that definition, but so do many other churches. I mean, in reality, Cornerstone has been more than 2,000 members since the 70s. So before anybody knew what a mega church was, based on that number of 2,000 people, it's a mega church. If you look at that definition of megachurch, on the day of Pentecost, when Peter got up and preached in the streets of Jerusalem, and the Bible says 3,000 were saved, the first church in the book of Acts was a megachurch. So when people say, I don't like those megachurches, it can't be a number thing. It has to be a personal thing.
That's right.
Because if that was the case, then you wouldn't have joined the church in Jerusalem because it was a megachurch. And so, I think you have to identify what you're dealing with when you're dealing with an individual who says they don't want to be a part of. I remember when you and I started dating, you grew up in a small town. You grew up in
which I think we had about 2,800 people in the whole town.
In the whole town, right? And you grew up in a community where, you had Protestant and Catholic.
Yes.
And in the Protestant space, you had, a Baptist church, and then you had a Pentecostal church, but they were very small congregations. The largest congregation was a Catholic congregation. And it was obviously somewhat of a big culture shock for you to come over and be involved at Cornerstone. And, what was it like for you joining a megachurch?
I know. Well, first, when I was going to come, I was invited by my aunt and uncle, and they were already coming here, and they'd been coming for years. And they said, now it's a large church. And I'm thinking large. Okay, our small church was at less than 150 people. So walking in, it was a little overwhelming at first, but they were there waiting for me. But when I walked in, there's somebody greeting you here at Cornerstone. So it wasn't like I was just walking in without anybody there, where sometimes at my small church, there wasn't even a greeter in the back. They were already sitting down, so you'd have to awkwardly go to your pew. Here, I felt welcome. There was somebody there. I went and met my aunt and uncle. They already had a seat saved for me. But it was, when they said mega church, you look around going, oh my gosh, there's going to be so many people. But I looked at it as like an opportunity, like, wow, there's so many more people here to meet with that have the faith that I do when I came to Cornerstone. And that was...
And one, you already knew somebody in the environment, so that helped. But then as you talk about the number of people that are here, at that point in time, you were just out of college and just starting your career in nursing.
Yes.
And in this environment, you were able to identify with other people who were at that same space in their life. So you saw other young people who were just out of school, just starting their career. Didn't take you long to meet them.
No.
And that's how you and I actually met.
Yes.
Is she started coming to Sunday school. If let me tell you something, good things happen at Sunday
If
school.
you're single watching right now, get plugged in.
It was extra credit, but she married the teacher.
I was the teacher's pet.
Not at first. It took a while.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
But anyway, now I think you're training the teacher. So. The truth is, in an environment with more people involved, you have the ability to identify your people group.
Yes.
And that leads to another thing that creates a megachurch: growth.
Yes.
If you're a young person and you go to a church where you don't identify with anybody because they're all older, well, then you're going to go look for a place where you can fit in, feel recognized, you're comfortable. But when you come to a church that's got multiple generations, you're going to identify that group inside that church and then become a part of it. And so, I believe that whenever you have the right culture where people are welcome, people are the important thing,
Yes.
then you just kind of create a space where every group grows, because everybody who walks into that environment identifies themselves in the space.
Yes, and there was so much to do. I mean, you had Joshua Generation.
Yeah, we
Remember
had
that?
we had a Sunday school, we had activities,
we had
we had
a
groups.
cell group leader where I could go to, which was his sisters, and Nate's,
Yeah, I sent her to my sister's Bible studies. Great way to get a background check on a potential date.
So that was nice to get plugged into a home ministry.
Yeah.
So I even felt more connected here in like a mega church than I did in a smaller church.
Correct.
Because there was just more opportunity.
Well, there's more resources. For many years, Cornerstone Church has had small group ministry. Actually, when my dad got past 1,000 people, he grew up never going to a church with more than 300. His father's church in Houston had about 250. So when he saw his church go past 300, he thought that was huge. And then it went from 300 to 750. And then it went from 750 to 1,500. It got to a space where it just started to grow so fast, he couldn't keep up with the individuals who were joining and started to struggle with how to connect with them. And that's when he started to train leaders who would be willing to invite those new people into their homes for Bible study. And as long as they had relationship and were able to connect and grow under somebody's leadership, then they just continued to grow. Right. So when you came and joined the church many years after that, that Bible study model and home leadership model started in the middle 70s. When you came in the early 2000s, that had been part of who we were for 20 years. And you connected with a group that enabled you to look forward to coming back to and being a part of the church. It didn't take but a couple of weeks. And instead of walking into a massive room, you felt like you were meeting a small group.
Yes.
And so I think that a lot of people utilize the mega concept as an excuse instead of an opportunity. Yeah. And, it might be a good thing that, as we're talking about this person who invited their cousin and their cousin said no, one, that you help them overcome that barrier by identifying the group that they're going to connect with. And then you
start there in a social,
and you kind of set it up. Yeah. Like you're saying, and it have that group meet them outside of church so that they can pull them into church. Or if you're going to start in church, then invite them to meet you in the parking lot and walk into the building with you. Because it always helps to have somebody that you can identify with right off the bat, or you can even utilize events. Like one of the things we do here in the summer is we have our summer concert series.
And invite a friend, invite a cousin.
Every Sunday we bring in, some of the best artists in the nation in Christian music and worship. And what it does is it gives our membership an opportunity to invite individuals in their social circles, in their family circles, people that they have relationship with who don't want to go to church, but they do want to see Chris Tomlin. What's his name?
Yeah, Chris Tomlin.
Yeah, that guy. And they want to hear, some of the artists that we're bringing in, Zach Williams and last summer we had Kane. This summer I think we've got Jeremy Camp, and so when you invite someone to an event that they're interested in being a part of, they don't care where it's at. Yes. Hey, you want to go to this concert? It's at the big stadium downtown. Yeah, I'll go. They don't care about. I don't like big stadiums, but if you tell them, hey, come to this concert at church, as long as that same artist is in that space, they'll go.
Yes. So I encourage the cousin, these two cousins, to come to one of our events. Yeah. It's the same thing with our women's ministry. We do a Christmas party, and I get like over half of our audience are visitors.
Absolutely.
There are people that were like, or they've been in the church, but they didn't really know anybody. And we intentionally make, women are a little bit easier to introduce each other and kind of mingle because we're very social. Yeah. And so it's, they meet people, but when other people meet somebody, they feel more comfortable. So then she was like, oh, okay, now that I'm plugged in, then I'm going to start coming to more events. But she did say she was a little intimidated to come to like a Bible study at first. So she thought, hey, a Christmas party? That's easy. But now she's coming to the women's Bible study.
Yeah,
because she met somebody. So I thought
everybody's different.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I've never walked into a room full of strangers.
Yeah,
I've just walked into a room full of people I haven't met yet. But there are some people that they can, you know, their nature is to avoid getting to know people, and they're introverted and they don't want to, you know, they have a lot of anxiety about talking to strangers. I don't necessarily understand that, but they don't understand me because I will talk to.
You can talk to anybody.
I'll talk to anybody, and if there's nobody to talk to, I'll talk to myself and still have a good time. But you know, like you're talking about, you know, in the women's ministry, I think it's funny because when you go into a women's event, you literally have to tell them be quiet because they just talk.
We talk over each other.
Yeah, they're talking, and the noise in the room, you have to get loud on the microphone. When you walk into a men's event, it's like a funeral. It's quiet. And they're sitting next to their best friend and they're just not saying anything.
Why?
And you have to tell them to talk.
Yes.
But
then you asked them how it went afterwards and they said, oh, it was great. But I was like, you didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
it's okay. But like the message was good.
I think
and
for
that's
a man,
how men...
there's times when you just need silence.
I know,
you know,
and that's
shoulder to shoulder. You know,
or we women, we have so many words that we need to express.
Men can communicate with a head bump.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, like, and
we interpret that as like, so what was she trying to tell me?
That's rude, but I mean. You know, men understand the difference between a "Hey, how are you?" head bump, and they understand a "Hey, what's up? Do you want to roll? You stepping on? You want to fight? You know, I mean, there's all kinds of different head bumps. But you know, regardless of what your preference is, you know, the loud room, the quiet room, the big group, the small group, the event, or just the Sunday school and Bible study. One of the benefits that you have from a ministry that has grown, developed, and really cared for every group of people that God brings into their environment is you have those resources.
Yes.
You know, it's like you were saying in the small town where you grew up, it's not the church's fault that they didn't have those resources. It's just the reality of it.
Yes.
And so in an environment where you do get into the mega space, as much as I don't like that phrase, you do benefit from being able to provide things that otherwise aren't available in other places. Yes. You know, so some of the things that we do on our podcast in every episode is what are called rapid fire questions. And so I'm gonna start. It's my job to answer them, her job to ask them, and your job to send them. So not only do we want to address topics that you're interested in, but if you have questions, shoot them our way, and we will make sure that we do our best to cover them in each and every program.
Rapid question number 1. You have a remarkable ability to personally connect with so many people in the church. How do you approach serving such a large and diverse congregation?
I love people. You know, and I want to know who they are. I want to know their story, and it's just part of my DNA. You know, it's my personality. And you know, I mean, you sometimes will get frustrated. You know, we'll go to a restaurant and I'll ask the waiter or the waitress, "What's your name?" And you know, you're like,
questions.
"Yeah, I want to get to know them and where'd you come from?"
I'm like, let's just order and be in silence.
You know, it's just part of who I am. Yeah. Pastor, my dad, he always tells me, he says, you know, you were vaccinated with a phonograph needle, which for those of you who don't know what a phonograph is, it's the precursor to a record player, CD player. You know, it basically means that I can talk a lot.
You can.
And so
the first time we started dating, sorry to interject, he talked for 35 minutes the whole entire time. I didn't even get one word in.
It was a good date.
It was a good day.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened.
Look, we're at Lattice.
Yeah, 4 kids and 20 years later.
I know.
You know, but you know, you grew up in a family with very quiet men.
Yes, I did.
You know, your dad and your brother are very quiet people, so I think you were shocked.
One. I was shocked that you talked
that there was a man that talked.
Okay,
but,
sorry. So all that to say is,
when it comes to a large and diverse congregation, yeah, it's large and it's diverse, but if you meet people, the person that you're talking to, even if you're talking to them in a room that is full of people, it's a personal conversation. And so I think you just approach it in that mindset that it's one-on-one, person to person, individual to individual, because there are general and common needs that are present, but each and every individual has something that's unique to them. And when you find out what that is and start to help them identify ways to solve it, it helps you connect with them, and it helps them connect to the church.
That's right. Have you ever struggled with the weight or responsibility of leading something this large?
No.
Got a good team.
I not only have a good team, but I'm called to this. And yes, there is a weight of responsibility, but it's not overwhelming. There's the drive and the desire to do better, grow, move forward, and sometimes I think we can create our own stress instead of looking at what is being accomplished and thanking God for what He's doing. I think sometimes if you do start to feel the weight of it, it's because you say, well, I wish it was going better. Well, sometimes be careful what you wish for, because it might not be what God wants. And I don't really struggle with the weight of it because I'm called to do it. This is what God created me for.
What's the biggest misconception people have about you as a pastor of a large church?
Oh, goodness. I don't know that there's a biggest one. I think that for a lot of people, it just depends on their understanding of church. Your grandmother, when she grew up in a Catholic church, and her husband was actually raised by Catholic nuns.
Nuns, yes.
And so whenever she found out that you were dating a pastor, she wondered what I had done to get kicked out of the church so that I could start to date women, because in the Catholic church, priests don't marry. And so I think I say that because everybody I meet has a different misconception. Some people's conception is that the only day I work is on Sundays. They're like, well, what are you going to do tomorrow? And I'm like, well, I'm going to work. And they're like, but it's Tuesday. And I'm like, yeah, there's work to do in preparation for services and the things that are happening. Coming. Yeah, Sunday's coming. But, there's a lot of people that think I'm just looking for something to do to fill my time up until Sunday. Other people, if you can misconceive it, I've heard it, trust me. So I don't know that there's a biggest one, but I do know that there's a lot of people who think that there's some special formula or function that you have as a mega pastor, if that's the title that people want to use. The reality is you're just as human as the rest of the world. What they're dealing with, you're dealing with. What they live in, you are living in the same environment. And what you oftentimes are encouraging them to do with your sermon, the message that God given you, is something that you have or are living through at that moment. So we put our pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else.
I've heard that saying.
Yeah. Well, when I get home, hey, I can preach the best message in the world, and when I get home, I still got to take out the trash.
Yeah.
Just the way it works.
That's the way it works. As churches grow larger and operate on a broader scale, some may feel that individual tithing becomes less important. How would you respond to that?
Well, I don't know that individual tithing is ever not important.
That's right.
It doesn't really matter what church you're going to. The Bible says, bring all of the tithe into the storehouse. Now, the reality of giving is that it is between the individual and God. It's not the church that you're giving to. It's the kingdom that you're a part of. And when people start to have these discussions, and sometimes there are disagreements about giving. Well, I don't think the church needs the money. It's not about the church needing the money. It's about your individual obedience to the command that God has put in His Word that you should be a giver. And the reason that command is there is, one, none of us have anything without God's grace providing it.
That's right.
The day that we live in, is a day that his grace created. The world that we're surrounded in is the world that he gave to Adam in Genesis. The job that you have, the health that you have, the strength that you have, all of the things that are in your life come by God's grace. And so knowing that without him, we have nothing, when you give, you are literally demonstrating that you know where it comes from and you're thankful for it. So I don't think that you ever get to say, at this size, when the church gets to be this large, I'm no longer responsible to give, because your responsibility to give never had anything to do with the size of the church anyway. It has to do with your obedience to God's word.
Amen. Do you ever feel like people focus more on the size of the church than the heart behind it?
A lot of people do. Churches are in some ways unique, but in many ways, just like anything else, everyone has their own opinion. And sometimes people want to be a part of something for various reasons. Sometimes people want to be a part of a church because of the social standing. Sometimes people want to be a part of the church because of the content. Sometimes people want to be a part of the church because of the location. Sometimes people want to be a part of the church because of the tradition. And all of those things can be part of the decision, but the reality of it is the location, the size, whatever it happens to be, if you're going to really commit yourself in membership, I think you owe it to yourself to understand the heart of that church. What does that church do, and how do they fulfill the mission and the vision? And if that aligns with your mission and your vision, then you belong there. And not everybody belongs to every church. We're all a part of the church. But, there are certain spaces and places that, God specifically has given you to be. And I think you need to find out what the heart of that house is and go do that, And so, there's people who come to Cornerstone, and what we do, they're all about. And then there's other people that they come and they, experience the church and they appreciate certain things, but there's another environment for them. I fully believe that there's no competition in the kingdom.
I like that, yeah.
And there's certain times that people want to pretend like churches are competing. We're competing, but not with other churches. We're competing with the world, the flesh, and the devil.
That's right.
I'm more concerned about people who aren't in church than people who are in another church. If you're in another church, you're playing for the right team, but if you don't go to church, now we got to go figure out how to get you into church. And so I think that the heart of the house has a lot to do with why people stay, but it may not always be the reason why they come.
That's good. These are great questions. Thank y'all for sending
them in.
Thank
you guys for the questions. And, again, we want you to like and subscribe to the podcast, share this content, tell people what's happening and how they can access this information. And there's lots of information in the show notes that you can share. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining Matt and Kendal today.
Thanks for joining us today. Please share this with your friends. We can't wait to see you again.